Hello, friends, and welcome into another episode of the Marriage Talk podcast. It's great to have you with us. We want to thank you for subscribing and hopefully sharing the link, either in audio or video form, to with other people in your world who could benefit from the things that we talk about on the podcast. And a quick reminder that if you go online to marriagetalk.org, you can watch and listen to every episode that we've ever done. So we'd love to have you do that. As we welcome in Jay and Laura LaFoon, you can find more information about their ministry at jayandlaura.com. And I want to start our conversation today quoting some words that have through the years have blessed and encouraged so many people. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
That's amore.
I almost thought about singing it for you, and then just in deference to Dean Martin, I decided not to. But today we're talking about like the wonder of love and what that even means, from the puppy love in the junior high world to the whatever it is we have now as older people. What is the wonder of love, and why is that our focus today?
Well, we want to clarify, it's not the wonder why I fell in love in the first place. Gotta wonder.
Although you may have that thought from time to time.
We do wonder that from time to time. It is that awe-inspiring wonder that I can't describe it. That, for those of us that are married, you cannot describe marriage to a single person.
True.
And have ways that they understand. And one illustration I use in describing marriage, it's like all the married people are in a big swimming pool and we're swimming, and the single people are along the edge asking questions, and the first question is, is it deep? And, oh yeah, it's deep. And, does the water get rough? And oh yeah, it gets rough, and then the big question, well, it looks cold. And we just have to say, well, you get used to it. It's like swimming in Lake Superior here in Michigan. It's refreshing, yes. You just can't describe it. But we're going to spend a couple weeks talking about words that are used to describe parts of this wonder of love. And it's amazing because it's not just one and done kind of a word. Love has so many different meanings, takes on so many different angles in your marriage relationship that we're going to actually spend 2 weeks on this.
That's right. We're going to look at some, and it may sound like these words are actually Greek words for love. Some of them we're going to have heard before. Some of them you're going to go, I've never heard of that word before. But they, as Jay said, they describe love and different parts of love that you want to build into your marriage.
And I think for the edification of our listeners who perhaps come to this outside of a faith background, can you share why we're even talking about the Greek versions of love and how that connects into Scripture?
Sure. The New Testament was written in Koine Greek.
Not the King James?
No, not the King James.
And
Koine Greek was actually known as the common man's Greek. So in other words, it was written for us common people to be able to understand it.
Not the philosophers or the religious elite.
Right. And honestly, the English language, we say love, and it could be, I love pizza. I love a good cup of coffee.
I love my dog.
I love my dog. These are one word to describe many different types of love. But the Greeks, they went specific, even though it was the common man's Greek, they went specific to describe this is this kind of love and how it plays out in your marriage. And it all starts with agape love, which is the love that God extends to us. And that's why this is so important for people of faith, that agape love is unconditional. Unconditional. I love you. I may not be happy with you. I may not be happy with what you're doing right now, but I love you unconditionally.
And we can understand unconditional love in everyday. This might be the love that people do have for their dog, for someone who maybe not married or is trying to understand, excuse me, what this means. It's that I love you no matter what you can do for me or what you do to me, or, it's that the dogs love their owners unconditionally. When they come running in the house, the owner comes in the house, the dog just runs up to them. They don't know any different. And so this is that unconditional love. But this we find in Scripture is that passage of scripture that is familiar to many of us, maybe even if you didn't grow up in the church, but it's that John 3:16 passage that talks about, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Nothing we could do merits this type of love. God gave his son because God is love. And that's this unconditional love that we have to have in our marriage. No matter what you do, no matter today you may do this and tomorrow you may be I still love you. It's that unconditional, you can't earn it type of love.
It's fairly rare for us to think of ourselves as unlovable. It's easy to think of other people as unlovable, but it's kind of rare to have the self-awareness to be introspective enough to say, I have really acted in some ways that have been unlovable, and yet this agape love from the Lord never stops. It never fails. It never departs me. And that's probably why I think personally, agape love is the hardest one for me to wrap my head around, because it's unstoppable, unshakable love. And in a human relationship standpoint, I know I'm supposed to extend that, but it's not that easy.
But I'm human.
Right.
And you're human. And so therefore, I do love you conditionally, even though I know I'm not supposed to. As long as you pick up your dirty clothes and you help me with the kids, then I'll love you. That is that human part of us. And it is hard to wrap our heads around. What does it mean to love no matter what?
And I kind of look at agape love, and this is a simple illustration from a simple mind, as like your home's foundation. Your house sits on a foundation. It may be a slab of cement, or it may be brick blocks, it may be poured cement, but it has a foundation that no one ever sees, but it's there. It undergirds everything. And that is what I view this agape love is. God's love is there. Whether we take advantage of that and extending it to our spouse is a choice we have to make.
And by the way, Laura, in reference to your earlier point about how your dog loves you unconditionally, I think that's true for our dog to my wife. I think that if our dog had a middle finger and the cognitive ability to extend it to me, I think that's probably what I would most often see, as he and I have been spending some quality time together while she's been on a trip with her sisters. I'm pretty sure I've detected some animosity coming my way. So
Well, it's just he's got a favorite parent. That's all.
yes, he does. Let's just go with most dogs.
Yes.
Reggie will be the exception. So
Well, we don't really know what we're talking about because we don't have animals. So I just know I've seen people who their dog just, this isn't just me being me, but I don't like the person. How does the dog like the person?
I know, I hear you. So if agape love is our framework or our baseline for where we're going with the wonder of love, where do we go next?
This is going to be a strange one, especially for people who grew up in the church, but it's Philautia love. And that is self-love. And it's really hard for us to wrap our head around that one as well, because self-love can lead to narcissism. Self-love can lead to self-centeredness, but self-love from God's perspective, understanding that we are created in his image, understanding that we are his child. Heard a great illustration as it pertains to this self-love. It's not about, hold on, let me get it. It'll come around. It's not about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. So in other words, I can love myself without being selfish. I have to learn to love my scars, my past, my baggage, that as I process, I don't carry it with me all the time, but I have to learn to love that that's the path that God had me on. And so I can either choose to love that or not. And again, it comes from scripture, where Jesus was asked, what are the greatest commandments? Well, the first commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is what? Love your neighbor as who? Yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, what we have to realize is we can't, until we love ourselves, and I think it's not a prideful thing. As Jay said, it's not it's thinking of yourself less. not thinking less of yourself. Don't get down on yourself. That's not loving yourself. Loving yourself is loving who you are in the person of Jesus Christ and who he has created you to be. And until you can do that, you can't love another person. And that's what that scripture says. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And the neighbor that's closest to you is your spouse. And so you can't really love your spouse until you have love who you are, who God's created you to be, the gifts and abilities he's given to you. And when you can love yourself and love who you've been created in the person of Jesus Christ, then you can love your spouse the way that it was intended as a husband and wife.
Does that tie us back to the discussion about where our true identity comes from? My true identity is as a child of God, a forgiven sinner who was created in the image of God and put on this planet for a vapor of time for a purpose. But my identity, my worth, my reason for being here isn't connected to any other human. It's not connected to my wife. My true identity doesn't come from Ellen. My purpose for being here is to, is partially to be a loving husband and all that, but that's not the love for myself, or the realization that I've been placed here by the Creator for a purpose. I'm wondering if you've really broadened that out, the Philautia love, if you really broaden that out, does that start to delve into world of where depression comes from and where we see things like suicide come from and all those very delicate topics that I want to be careful to talk about, but I'm more likely to be completely depressed if I'm getting all of my self-worth from other people instead of from the Creator. Is that the right ballpark?
Other people or our accomplishments. Well, that's a lot of people identify as I'm a successful businessman or I'm a successful teacher or whatever. I think you're right. I think these first two, Agape and Philautia, are really underlying the other four that we'll be talking about the rest of this week and next are very much more out and visible, but these are very internal. To understand that you are created by a God who loves you unconditionally, and then the Philautia, the self-love, to know that, well, I am a child of the King, and as a child of the King, that's where I get my identity. Sink or swim in this world as far as the
and that's why it's important that you do get your identity from there, because only then can you love another person who's a fallen creature, who sins, who's going to disappoint you, who's going to hurt your feelings, who's going to do all of that, because they're human. And therefore, when you can understand who you are in the eyes of the Creator, then you can understand who they are. And that's why it's so important that you have that self-love. That scripture says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. You have to love yourself first, because only then can you love another fallen, sinful, disappointing, disgusting, whatever word you want to use.
Well, and it's funny, I didn't mean to use a house illustration, but again, if agape love is the foundation, then this Philautia love are the studs and the frame that all of the pretty stuff goes on. And if you don't have a solid foundation and a solid frame, the rest of these are not going to take effect.
Isn't it wild when you come across somebody who not only understands that concept, but has been living it? They have a different peace about them. They have a different level of worry and panic about them. They have a different contextual, perception of things that are roiling about and have other people up in arms. And you'll often see them, usually as senior citizens, just kind of sitting back and nodding a little slowly, and quite often some words of wisdom will come from them. My father-in-law, who passed away last year, or the year before last, I'm sorry, very much like that, not rattled by a thing, because he was fully confident where his true identity came from, and certainly would never be considered somebody who was arrogant or narcissistic, but he had love for himself as a creation of the Almighty. And Jay, I know that you share a similar thought about your mom, who just went home to be with the Lord.
Yes. it's funny because we can't define wisdom, but you know it instantly when you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're talking about when, and it does come with age, and we've all heard the phrase, "Oh, that person's wise beyond their years," and that's true. A lot of, you can find an 18-year-old who says something wise, and they are very wise for their age, but it is that you come to a certain point, I think, where there's an understanding both internally and externally that while I'd like to be in control, God really is in control. And if I can submit to that and love the way he's made me and love the person he's made me to be, then I can walk through this life with a confident peace that that is instantly attractive to people, whether or not you know it and you recognize it.
This is such a vital concept, and I think of it in the terms of the year 2024, which is on that 4-year cycle. This is a national election year, and so the primary purpose of most of the media is to keep all of us worked up in enough of an angst-driven frenzy that we will continually watch or click or read or whatever, consume the coverage that they're providing. This is their Mardi Gras year. It's like nobody leaves the parade until after November, right? And then we all start getting along. And I think about people who are so incredibly worked up because of this report, that report, what's happening. Did you see this? Did you see that? Not that it's unimportant. It's just not the most important.
Right.
And they become completely consumed by it, and they begin yelling at each other. You'll see people who are normally calm, friendly people, maybe even within the same church or the same family, with, fingers shaking in the face of somebody else. And how could you ever? I can't believe you. And you're like, whoa, I realize now that the danger of defining my joy or defining myself using the framework of politics or policy or the news headlines or all that different stuff. Again, not that it's unimportant, it's just not the most important. And if I lose track of where my identity comes from, my identity does not come from a political party. The political parties are a mess.
Right.
I don't want my identity coming from either side of all of that. And this year, I think we're going to see put to the test this exact concept that you've been describing.
Yes.
I think it's the same when you start gaining your identity and you see this, we used to see it a lot in teenagers, and I think we're seeing it more in folks our age and in between, is what you post on social media. This is who I am, whether it's a political party or it's here's influencers, you're seeing women my age and a little younger. Now I'm going to start being an influencer, and I'm going to start putting things out there because this is who I am. And this is, it's not about the next energy drink that you drink or the energy bar or this outfit or that outfit or this sports bra or this golf driver or whatever it might be. It's so bombarding us in Facebook and Instagram and TikTok that we think that this is going to make us something that we're not, or maybe something that we wish we would be, when all of that is irrelevant. Every bit of it is irrelevant in the grand scheme of who God created us to be.
And I think one of the things we could do as husband and wife is speak that self-love into the life of our spouse. I heard a great quote, residing in your spouse is both royalty and foolishness. And whatever you speak to your spouse is what will emerge. And I think that is so profound in speaking this helping, if your spouse struggles with self-love, struggles with loving who God made them to be able to speak into their life that they are royalty, that you are, this is when I see Jesus in you. One lady said to Laura after one of our ultimate date nights, she said to Laura, "You're so pretty when you smile." And I'm like, okay.
Thanks for that.
What she's not, but it's that kind of, it's that.
We call that a compliment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Accomplice all. That's great. But speaking into the life of your spouse, that I love and appreciate about you, and this is an attribute that reminds me of the Lord
Mm.
that I find in you.
But as the scripture says, we can't do that unless we love ourselves first, unless we're comfortable. A phrase, I know, I think I heard it from Jay first, but it's been years ago. If I'm not, I got to be comfortable in my own skin, and who I am and who God made me be, and who he created me to be before I can help someone else. And I think that's what this Philautia love is, love yourself, love your neighbor as you love yourself. The first is that you have to love yourself.
Right. So this week we're going to cover 3.
Yep. Agape, Philautia, and
Then one we're all familiar with, Philos, or friendship love.
It's where Philadelphia comes from, brotherly love, the
The
city of brotherly love. And you may be going, brotherly love, we're talking about marriage. Yes. More often than not, we see so many marriages who are struggling and beginning to fall apart because they've forgotten the friendship that developed, or maybe it never did develop between spouses. You never had that friendship love, that you enjoy being together. You enjoy having conversation. Last night we were sitting on our front porch. Thank goodness it's the end of April. We're finally on the front porch, and I'm sitting there trying to read a book. And Jay just he's on Facebook looking at this video and that video, and he's what's the word, commentating. And I wanted to say, excuse me, I'm trying to read my book, but I began to be amused because he's just sharing whatever is going on in his head as he's watching these. What are the videos that you watch? Like
America's Funniest Home
yeah,
Videos.
where people get hurt, and people laugh. And so he's just commenting, and I was really close to just saying, could you go get your earbuds or something? Because you're really annoying me. But then I realized that this was kind of like the companion. He was just talking as he was listening and watching and wanted to share that with me. And while it irritated me at first, I was like, this is really we're friends. We enjoy being in each other's company, and we enjoy doing things together. And I enjoy beating him on the golf course.
Yes, she does. But
really test the relationship.
That's right. No,
competitive.
She's not competitive at all. No, but I do think friendship in a marriage is important. And again, it can be very difficult for some couples because we have such different interests. Now, I am blessed, and I say this sincerely. Pardon me. I am blessed to be married to a woman who loves sports. She loves watching sports. She loves participating in sports. Absolutely. I mean, she knew more about this NFL draft than I did, for crying out loud. And I'm blessed with that. So we have that in common. But as the kids left the house, we needed to find more than sports in common. And so we started experimenting with different things. And we've found that we love to cook together. And so that's kind of the friendship thing that we love to do, is to prepare meals together. We were in Florida at a resort, and there was a couple that we would get our table and they would get the table right next to us.
You try and get to the pool early so you can get a table in the shade.
Yeah. And they had the table next every day. They brought a bag full of board games and card games, and they would literally sit there all day long and play board games and card games. Now, that's not our cup of tea, but it was for them. And so that's the beautiful thing. We've got friends that love to go hiking together. Great, do that. Just find something that you like to do together. And it doesn't have to be rocket science. Maybe it's you both like a particular television show, and that's your, weekly TV date. It's not a real date, but, we're going to sit down and watch this show because we love it together and we like to talk about it. But something that keeps that friendship side of your relationship alive.
That enjoying being with each other, just being in each other's company and enjoying having that person next to you. As I said earlier, we see more and more couples who have lost that friendship. And when you lose that friendship, you begin to resent, and bitterness sets in. And then you resent that he's going golfing, or that she's going shopping, or that he's going out for a bike ride and she's going to go walk with her friends, or whatever it might be. And your paths begin to steer away from each other. And if you continue to let them go and go and go away and away and away, it's going to be harder and harder to get them back together. But
And that's not to say that you can't have your own hobbies. No, I'm
No.
not saying that at all. But make sure you've got some stuff that you do with your spouse that's just fun. It's just fun, and we both enjoy it.
And we do have things that we enjoy. I love to go for walks. Jay, I love to go for bike rides. Jay, not so much. He likes to walk for exercise, but he doesn't like to just go stroll and walk unless he's on a golf course. I love to go for bike rides. I love to just sit and read a book. He has to be doing something. And so we have, hobbies that we both enjoy. I love to paint. And so there's just things that we enjoy doing separate, but we have those things that we enjoy doing together where we enjoy each other's company. And that's that Philios, that friendship love.
Let me just add a little tag onto the, onto the end of that. As an encouragement, you're not going to help yourself if you surround yourself with friends who speak poorly of their spouses.
Exactly.
You're not going to be your spouse's friend if you're used to this environment where it's the old lady, the old man, it's the disrespectful, it's the he never, she never, she always. And I understand you're going to share with your closest friends some of the things that are frustrating in your life. I'm talking about when people start to demean the actual worth of their partner. That doesn't do you any good. And if you sit there silently through it,
Condoning it.
shame on you, frankly. Go ahead and feel free to say to some of your friends, listen, I'm sorry you guys are going through this. And if I can help you, but I really prefer not to hear you speak that way about that person because they're my friend too, or however it goes. So I just want to, if we're going to talk about the person-to-person friendship relationship, I am blessed to be in the company of male friends. I'm trying to think. I don't think I ever have heard them say an unkind, untrue, negative word about their spouses. It doesn't mean that they're living in some la la land of the Truman Show where everything is orchestrated and perfect. It just means that they've come to deal with those things because they have that level of relationship where if they're frustrated with something, they'll work it out as opposed to festering it and then taking it to this stranger on an airplane kind of a thing where you're like, whoa, wait a second. What? That's not healthy for anybody. So in this 2-part series, we will talk about 6 different definitions of love today. Agape, Philautia, I think I said that right, and Phileos or Philadelphia, brotherly love. And next week we'll take you home with the other 3. So a great start on this concept of the wonder of love. Make sure you check us out online at marriagetalk.org. And really, we would love to have you share the link to this week and especially next week, because this little 2-part package could really be a difference maker in the lives of some of the people that you know and care deeply about. So thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again with part 2 next time.